Raul Blei, welcome to the Foxhole, buddy.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for asking me to come on.
Yeah. So I'm George Howard, and this is Steph Mark, both of the Cosmic Summit, and we've got today Raul Blei of Pillars of the Past. But let's start out with some program notes first. How's that sound, Steph?
Yeah, that sounds great.
So if people are not aware, the Cosmic Summit is a yearly event to take everybody whose eyes are bleeding on YouTube late at night in their pajamas, acting like they're scientists, and get them together once a year. And we have set the date for next year. It's on the longest day of the year, the summer solstice, June 20th through the 23rd. And it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful speaker list. We've added a few new ones. You know, we've got Robert Edward Grant coming, who's a big favorite. And another phenom, just like yourself, Raul, debunker Dan Richards is going to be joining us. And we've got a number of invitations and proposed invitations out, and we'll be announcing some new ones very soon, some exciting stuff. So let's just go through again. You know, we've got multiple ticket types, so we're trying to appeal to just about every means we can. The first is the Clovis Pass for the slim, mobile Clovis man on his own who brings his own food because no food will be served. Okay, so that's a $450 pass, and that set is non-refundable. So that's one of the giveaways there that we'll give you the cheapest pass, but we, it's got to be locked in. So $450 for the Clovis Pass. We got the Megafauna Pass, just as we had last year, which is 2 days and 2 days of food, and that is $685. And the Moai Pass, which is a VIP light kind of pass. That's 2 days, 2 days of food, and you're going to join us on a meteor stream and kind of get to know Randall. We're going to have some VIP goodies for the Moais too. And then the Atlantean Pass, which is filled with goodies that you should go review on the meteor stream, and the Anunnaki Pass, which is the golden ticket, the VIP Ultra 3-day, 2 days food, hotel included, VIP plus private welcome reception, and a one-on-one with a chosen speaker, among other things. And that is $3,495. And we had a great participation with that last year. Look forward to more of those Anunnakis. One more thing on the ticket prices. If you want to get any of those prices $50 off, that's going to be Pillars 50 in honor of our guest today, Raul Blei of Pillars of the Past podcast. So that's $50 off. Just go into the purchasing system and you type Pillars 50 and you'll get $50 off one of those tickets. Please buy tickets, folks. The more that people buy up front, the better we can make the show. They're all refundable. It's at the Clovis Pass. They have sold out in the past completely 2 years ago, way in advance. We maxed it out last year. Do us a favor, buy a ticket early. We'd love to have you in the community right now, and use Pillars 50 for $50 off. Raul Blei, how you doing, man? Good to have you in the Foxhole.
It's good to be here.
I figure I'd let you introduce yourself in your trailer. How's that sound? And let me play the trailer.
My name is Raul Blei. I'm a researcher, explorer, and this is Pillars of the Past. Join me as I embark on epic adventures to forgotten and lost locations to reveal pieces of our ancient past.
Found them.
Using everyday technologies to map out what I believe are the remnants of ancient architecture, I'll travel to some of Peru's most remote locations, journeying across mountains, through fertile valleys, forging through rivers, and enduring arid deserts on a quest to seek out and document these ancient sites. I'll navigate to places not listed on maps or official records. I'll find ancient cities reduced to rubble and others whose structures are buried and begging to be uncovered. I'll be befriended by helpful locals guiding me on my journey as I seek to capture the only modern media that exists of some of these locations. I'll discover undocumented temples, geoglyphs where they aren't supposed to be, come across countless artifacts and relics thousands of years old. I'll examine mysterious construction methods and find undeniable evidence of catastrophic events that forever changed landscapes. I'll stand in shock amidst savagely looted burial sites, littered with skeletal remains and debris that were once funerary wrappings. I'll tackle issues of preservation, have conversations with leading specialists at the top of their field. There will be new locations, new discoveries, and new research. And as Pillars of the Past continues to grow, I aim to establish the resources and connections for better equipment, better access, and the advanced technologies needed to better investigate, document, and capture these newly discovered and ancient forgotten sites. I believe there's an explorer in each of us. And I hope you join me on the next adventure.
Hell yeah, Raul. That's fantastic, man. You are our kind of guy, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, let me ask you, man. There's a lot of people who are doing what you're doing is a wonderful phenomenon. And I'm convinced kind of YouTube is a force for good that's underappreciated. One of the things that excites me is, people are terribly curious about this stuff. They don't want to hear from experts any longer. They want to hear from doers, and you're one of those doers. So they're crawling all over the globe. I think we could probably name a half dozen of them if we thought about it. And it made me think we need to start a Cosmic Explorers Club. So right off the bat, I'm going to put you on the spot. Will you join the Cosmic Summit Explorers Club?
I would join it. Yeah.
Hey, terrific, buddy. And the idea would be, I'd like you to come to the event for free. We might find a speaking position for you, but at a minimum, if you can make it down to Greensboro next summer, you can come free and we'll give you a free hotel room and we'll put you on a panel with some of the other explorers. Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
I would be honored.
Yeah, well, the guy that runs around Montana and the Trek fella and so forth. I just going to run through them like we all do. Don't even know their names, but I'm going to go dig them up. We just thought of this morning, and we'll just kind of have a little bit of an informal club of people that come to the Cosmic Summit or are also out there marching around. Maybe you could slap one of our stickers on one of the old temples or something out there in the middle of nowhere.
I love that idea. I'd be honored, and yeah.
That could be fun, man. We'd like to extend our brand out there, and we'll figure out a way to help you too. Maybe this helps you today too. But Pillars of the Past, as you can see, folks, is Raul on his own out there in the absolute middle of nowhere in Peru, just looking for trail magic, from the locals. And I've done a little bit of that marching around in third world countries, and it takes some bravery.
It definitely does. There were a few situations that I found myself in where, everything in me wanted to go forward, but I knew the responsible thing was to turn back. And in those moments, I did the responsible thing, because I was by myself, no cell phone service. God forbid something happened. I mean, I definitely took a lot of risks, though, that I probably should have not taken. But live and learn. It was the first time doing something like this, and it was the most fulfilling expedition of my life thus far, and I plan for the next one to be even more fulfilling.
Have you been chased around by farm dogs yet? Because I was looking at you, I was like, look, that's when you get chased by a dog. You're going to run up on a mean-ass dog walking around out in the country like that.
There were a few archaeological sites where there were a few dogs, but they just wanted food. The only wildlife I ran into really were strangely foxes.
Really?
A bunch of, it was kind of a spiritual thing. Like the first 5 days I was at, and these are sites that are hundreds of kilometers away each day. I'm walking out on the path, there was a fox that crossed my path. For the first 5 days, it was strange.
Really? Okay. You mean kind of like this fox?
Kind of like that.
I knew you were going to do that.
Well, I kind of messed it up, man, because it's set to go to him in landscape, but this was portrait. But yeah, the tusk will work better. Hold on, here's the name of it. If you ever run up on one of these, you let us know, Raul, okay, and whip the camera out, man. Okay,
that's impressive, and for sure, I definitely will.
So, what's your connection with Peru? You must be pretty comfortable with the nation of Peru.
Well, my mother's Peruvian. And,
okay.
Yeah, and so my father's American. And, when they met, he fell in love with Peru. And so growing up, I would go down there about every year and a half or so and spend the holidays with my abuelita and my aunts and uncles down there. And my dad was a real adventurous guy. And so we went, I mean, everywhere.
Did you?
Just everywhere. And,
yeah,
you know, the big inception moment for me was, you know, this is back in, it was at Machu Picchu. I was about 12 years old. And back then, you didn't have a set path. You just went to the site. You could go wherever you wanted.
Yeah.
So I broke away from whatever tour group we were on, and I just found a little cave up there and saw something shiny in the wall. I started digging at it and found seashells buried into the wall at Machu Picchu.
Wow.
And it's funny. I actually found the home video footage of this. I went to my dad and I showed him the video camera, and I was like, Dad, look what I found, you know, and that sparked the curiosity of like, how did these get up here, you know?
Yeah.
And so over the next several decades, you know, I would learn about the earth changing and, you know, trade between cultures. And so that was a big moment for me. And so, I mean, my personal connection to Peru runs deep.
Mm-hmm. Give us a little overview of Peruvian history, how you see it, Raul.
Well, I mean, I think what we know of the history is changing frequently. I mean, there's new dating happening on sites that, you know, were kind of left alone because they didn't have any archaeological treasures, so they were overlooked, and so now things are getting dated thousands of years prior to what they were, and so the I mean, it's quite phenomenal. As of now, like the oldest stone temple city is Caral, and that dates back to 1,000 years before the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. You know, as academia says, and you know that culture was in place for 1,000 years. No violence, but also no artwork either. There was no signs of warfare, is what I'm saying, and which was a little interesting that, you know, when archaeologists found that. And so, but after that culture, I primarily focused on the coast, at least on this last expedition. And you can certainly see this. There's this trade network between the people living up like where Caral is and the people on the coast. And the people on the coast were trading those people fish, and in return, they were receiving like fish nets. And so there was just this weird interlocking pattern happening. And this was up and down the coast. And, you know, I was speaking with a professor familiar with the history of South America. And he was saying, you know, he's not going to be shocked when you find other cities like Caral up and down the coast. But what happens is the El Niños happen. And those El Niños, every couple hundred years, they're bad ones. And so people will, I mean, their cities get inundated on the coast, and so everything's devastated. So they move inland and further up into the mountains, and then after some time, factions started coming up, and that's when you see this big influx of defensive structures. People were building fortresses, you know, all along these peaks of the mountains, and I went to go check some of those out, but that was like the first indication that people were fighting for resources. And then they would come back down to the coast, you know, and often they would rebuild at or near some of those ancestral sites, and whether or not it was in reverence or because it was just the best place to build, that's what they did. So they'll typically find different generations of cultural architecture at some of these sites. And then another El Nino happens, and it happens again. And so, but I mean, some of the cultures down there, I want to find the oldest stuff personally, but there's the artwork, the architecture, just to imagine what these places must have looked like. I mean, some of them are just expansive, and it's really difficult to wrap your head around how some of these were constructed so early on.
Where do you have any? Do you believe the mainstream has misinterpreted some of the sites? Do you have any kind of contrary views about the timeline of Peru?
When other scientists are going to look at, another scientist's research and actually like look at it without, being closed-minded. I mean, what they're finding is, the pyramid site like Huaca Prieta that was initially not thought to be that old is now confirmed like 3,000 years older. And so going back to 6,000, 6,000 BC, which is
holy shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know some things have been dated that far back.
Well, and so the thing is though, and so when I say it's a pyramid, what it was it was a mound. It was a mound that was. Dr. Ed Barnhart talks about it. It was Tom Dillahay who did the archaeological excavation and the dating of it, which was not accepted for the longest time. And the same thing happened down at his site in Monteverde, exactly. And so, but now that's well accepted. I think it's only a matter of time until other sites, along the coast, but then there's so much in the Andes and in the Amazon too. But I think it's only a matter of time until things get redated and actually looked at, hopefully with a level of open-mindedness where people aren't just shutting down things off the bat.
Wasn't there a site where you mentioned it was 13,000 years ago, there was 13,000 years BC, where they found evidence of settlement and plant sort of things that they could carbon date back to that period.
Yeah, that was at Monteverde. That was in the bogs at Monteverde, and so that's the thing. It's like if there are people down there, there's gonna be places where you find evidence of people living there. The problem, like I said, especially on the coast at least, those El Niños just destroyed things. And so, and you can see it. You look at Google Earth, you can see the landscape, with water coming in, water coming down off the Andes. And so I've actually spoken to a few geologists because I wanted to get that confirmed. I was just like, what am I looking at? They're theories until, I find something tangible. But I'm not going to be so what happened was a lot of these places were like Corral was explored early in the 1900s. They found it, but they didn't find any treasure. It was an old culture. It was a shockingly amazing architectural culture, but that was it. And when they didn't find anything, they just kind of overlooked it. And it wasn't until I believe like the 70s that they actually did dating and found out how much older it was. I think there's going to be a ton of more things like that. I just think about what else did those people overlook?
Well, I'll tell you what, we've got resources. We maybe get some things dated down there. Keep your eyes open for, little pieces of wood in the masonry or something. It'd be fun to do some original research,
I would love to make that happen. And I have a list of places to make that happen at. And
awesome, man. That's the kind of stuff the Explorers Club could do, right? Cosmic Explorers Club to move the ball down the field some.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's terrific. Corral, I remember that Dr. Barnhart said that it's the same thing you did, that it was peaceful for 1,000 years. And that took me back. I did not know that. What do you think? You think that's a long, long time for people to live together in peace. I wish we could figure that out in our own age.
I mean, it is, it's quite shocking to think that means, there must have been some sort of unified approach to things and from the trade networks, that's what it looks like.
Well, you just don't hear of many long-time peaceful cultures. Usually it's just a story of war and battle and fractional fighting for, that waxes and wanes, but it isn't just absent for a millennia. Yep. How cool is that? Steph, what's on your mind? I got some questions, but I want you to jump in too, girl.
I've got lots and lots of questions. I think probably one of my favorite things, I was tuning in while you were doing lots of Instagram lives while you were out on your tour in Peru. And one that really stuck out in my mind was when you kind of got out of your car, you went for like a walk through like the bush, and then you came across this farmer, who I think he was trying to, like, there was snakes in his field or something, and he was like, right, I'll take you up into like the mountains and I'll show you these ruins. And I was thinking, I was watching on my phone and I was going, oh my god, he's gonna get murdered, live on Instagram. But it was just amazing. And it was that location where, was that the one where you found what you believe to be the world's, or sorry, the oldest solar calendar there? Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And you're not the only person who's relayed that thought to me about, am I about to see the end of this guy's life on Instagram Live?
I didn't know it was live. I watched the video, which is obviously still up there, but I've watched it. I've rolled it back several times, and I never picked up that you were live when you did that. I mean, that makes it even more intrepid.
Yeah. It was totally, I mean, I think the live version is still on Instagram. But that was really, I mean, it was shocking. Both me and him were shocked, as soon as I turned the corner and there he is.
But he knew his archaeology, right?
Well, and the thing about that is, and we're Facebook friends now, and I've actually pinged him. I think I'm going to try to have a conversation with him again. And actually that's something, maybe I'll poll some people to see what they want me to ask him.
Yeah.
I mean, this was my second day of my expedition, and just what an amazing blessing by circumstance. So I get there and I'm like, I think this is an archaeological site. The reason I thought it was an archaeological site, there was no label on Google Earth, and so that's what I was looking for, things with no labels. Yeah. And I was like, these are mounds. They're in the middle of a valley, or they're in the middle of an alcove. They all look like they're facing north-northeast. That's the way they align their old constructions. These are probably pyramids. So I was like, let me go check it out. So I get there, and I'm like, he was scared because apparently people from the town come and rob him often. They come and rob the farmers out there, and he had braced himself. And now when you know that and you go back and watch it, you can kind of see his
that he was spooked too, like is often the case when you're out in the country. He didn't know who the hell you were either, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm sitting there talking on my phone, and then I'm talking to him, and I was just like, "What's back here?" He was like, "It's an archaeological site." I was like, "Oh, can you tell me more?" And then just things kind of opened up, and Luis just walks me through the entirety of the site. And this was his land, and it's been his land for a long time. So when the archaeologists came to look at that site, he was right there. And so he helped them out, and he got to know them. And it was just amazing because he had all the history and the knowledge of that site. Now, that site is a couple valleys down, just two small valleys, I think, down from Corral. And something that, this was also the thing that kind of clued me in that it was probably pyramids. Corral, when you look at it, all their temples have these circular plazas in the center of them, or like at the front in the center of them. And these structures I saw on Google Earth, one of them had that circular plaza. So I was like, it's close enough. It's probably the same culture. Let me go check it out. And he confirmed it for me. He said, this is the Norte Chico culture, which is, the people who built Corral. The fact that it was them, the fact that Corral dates back to 3200 BCE, this site probably does too. And it had a stone monolithic calendar system.
It sure did. It looked like a little Stonehenge.
And so he was like, this is the only, and I didn't think there were any. Mm-hmm. He was like, this is the only one out of the entire Norte Chico culture. The only one. And given that it's the oldest culture, I'm just putting two and two together. It's probably the oldest stone calendar that we found.
Sure.
Now, I didn't discover it. I mean, clearly archaeologists have been there before, and, but there was no sign, that was a little strange too. There's probably
was there flint? Did you see nappings and those type things? I mean, or was it buried? First of all, there was a lot of sand up there. Yes. Everything buried. Is that the top of those stones, or did someone take the stones and put them back? How do you still see it?
I mean, those things, I guess just over time, the pyramid structures, I don't think that there is one location where he did say that they found a stone bench, but a stone bench made of the bedrock. And he said they dug it, they took pictures of it, then they covered it back up, which I guess to preserve it for the future is what's made sense. I don't know if those temples go down further. To me, I don't unless the temples at Corral go down further, they're about the same size. So I think they're just in ruin. They're just an absolute.
Well, it's a very weird, foreboding looking landscape, man. I mean, you walked out of a kind of lush green agricultural area and then into this moonscape up there. Did that go on for miles and miles? Was that a transition of ecotones, as you would say?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I on this last expedition, I mean, I drove up and down the coast, almost 3,000 kilometers, and I was in every environment you could think of besides the jungle, pretty much. And and that's the cool, unique thing about the Peruvian ecosystem. I mean, you have the coastal desert, then you start the incline into the Andes, and on that incline, you're hitting all these rivers that are, all the water's coming down from the Andes, so it's these fertile valleys, and then you get up into the Andes Mountains, and then as you start your descent from the Andes on the other side, you're coming into the Amazon jungle. So I mean, it's just the ecosystem is just so rich down there, and unique.
Yeah, I'll be going down there in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about that a little more, but let's talk more about you right now, man. Are you going to move out to other countries? Would you go down to, I guess, where is Tiahuanacu? That's across the border.
That's in Bolivia. I mean, I definitely would. This is, I mean, Pillars of the Past is still in its infancy. It's literally only been, I think I put my first post out there on January 5th, 6th, or 7th, something like that. So it's not even a year old.
Well, we're happy to give you a boost, man, but it's growing, right? You comfortable with its growth? Yeah.
I'm not only comfortable with it. I've been humbled by it, to be quite honest. I mean, it's just been. I didn't think it was going to receive the reception it did, and it's just. I mean, I'm getting the chills right now. It's
cool, man.
Yeah,
you're getting the chills. You're a modern day explorer, right? And I like that. I like that you're not going to the places that are listed. We've seen a lot of them. And I think it's so cool to go out and look for the next tier, and really the next and next tier, the things that just are not on the maps, are not listed on Google Earth, but are clearly there and had some historical importance.
The Peruvian government has done a decent job of identifying most places, to me at least it seems, because they might not be labeled on maps, or you can't. I mean, some of these sites. I mean, good luck trying to look up that site. The name was Caballete with Luis. You really got to dig hard to find stuff on it, and that's just one example. And that's you'll find stuff because it's been researched, but others. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, and I'll get there, and the majority of sites did have a Ministry of Culture sign somewhere, and so it was a known site at some point. It was at least documented by the government. There were a handful that I found that did not have any of those, so I'm still trying to figure out what to do with that information and relay that to the government in the appropriate way. So I mean, it's just Peru is so rich with its history. And nobody's going to them.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the, because in one of your videos you spoke to the kind of agricultural kind of destruction of some of these sites. You were looking at, I think it was satellite imagery from 2023 versus 2020, and it's just being unbelievable. Taken over. I was shocked by that. So do you want to just talk to us about what you discovered there?
Often when I'm using Google Earth to search things out in order to get a better view of, potential architectural structure, I'll roll the satellite date back so it's a different environment or a different season. And so it's by complete happenstance that I did that at a site. And I was like, wait, 10 years ago, there was all of this here. What happened to it? And and after that, I've started doing that regularly. And I've found about a dozen sites like that where some sort of what appears to be, and from going there in person, it appears to be a corporate type of conglomerate that comes in there and they just like leveled over the ruins. I mean, literally,
like avocado farmers in Mexico, they go and take over whole valleys, drain rivers. It's just major big money destruction.
And I mean, it's and I spoke to an archaeologist when I was down there. He was actually staying in the hostel I was at. We went out to dinner, and I brought that up to him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I mean, it's a bigger problem than looting down there."
Well, that's what I was going to bring up. You have a heartbreaking video on looting.
Oh yeah.
The 8 Mile Ridge, where it is 8 straight miles, folks, of pits from pot hunters. That's what they called them on the digs I went on, pot hunters.
Yep.
But I mean, just pit after pit after pit after pit. I mean, thousands of them. I mean, just the manpower. And here's my question for that. Then you go through and it's just, I mean, it's bad enough to see all the archaeological damage, but then you see the desecration of the graves and just bones laying around and skulls and stuff, where people had just rifled through hundreds and hundreds of graves. What in the hell are they looking for? Were these people ever buried with precious metals or antiquities that would be valuable?
I mean, the textiles, they were wrapped in, depending on their status, of course. I actually didn't even put 2 and 2 together until I went to, a known burial, the known burial site of Changuillo, I think, where they still have the mummies preserved and their wrappings and they're wrapped in cotton and then textiles and the ropes. And then I was like, oh my God, that's what I saw yesterday at this burial site. I mean, just the mummies were ripped open, and depending on the class of the person, I'm sure they had, some sort of adornment, some sort of jewelry, tapestries, things of that nature that, anything that can be sold, they will look for.
Did you see an antiquities market there? Did you see a gray market? I can sell you some old stuff from Peru. I wonder where it all goes, man.
I've heard of people experiencing that, actually, particularly in the Nazca region, but I've never personally experienced that.
Huh. Speaking of Nazca, what do you think is the purpose of those lines as somebody who's studied the country quite carefully?
Dr. Ed Barnhart put out some thoughts on it, and I kind of tend to agree with his theory there, where yes, there's some evidence that the lines, could be astronomically aligned, but because of the sheer number of the lines, you have such quantity, something's gonna every now and something's gonna align to something, But the fact is, there's so many that you can see, you're starting to be able to see that, all right, this line covered that line and covered that line in no set standard order. So it's like, so the thought is that there's a site called Kawachi, which is this impressive temple center down in Nazca, and a newly presented theory is this was a pilgrimage site, and it was, because there weren't houses right there or anything like that. It wasn't a settlement nearby, so it was just this complex of pyramids. And so if cultures were coming there, perhaps as a way of paying like homage to towards the gods or something like that, that they would, create these lines and not care about the lines that were there, the year before, and et cetera. So, I mean, I've read it all, the underground aquifers. I mean, I think it was a way to pay tribute and honor, their creators.
Assuming that they were above.
Above. Yeah.
I'm just going to ask, like, you were there in Peru for a long time. Like, what do you think your favorite sort of find or discovery or just, location was from the whole trip?
There's two. One was the undocumented temple, simply because it was, and that video is on the YouTube. Simply because that was legitimately, it's not on the Ministry of Culture's website of archaeological sites. There was no sign. Usually there's a sign, or at least I went to several places too where there might not have been a sign, but there was like a survey marker or something like that, you know, a stick with a little highlight on it. So clearly it had been to before. This particular temple, nobody except looters had been to. And so that was really exciting. I wanted to discover something, you know?
Hell yeah.
There's a site all the way up north, about 12, 14 hours from Lima, that I initially wasn't going to go to. But I was like, I'm down there. And this was a site that it looked like there were, 15, 16 pyramid-looking things. And so I was like, you know what, that ended up becoming I went up north that far and then came back down. So that was like that was the mid-expedition destination. That was the most impressive. That was most impressive because it took so much work to get out there. So much work. Like I showed it in the video, but I had to snake my way through this little farmland. At some point, I put the drone up in the air so I could kind of get a bird's eye view. Google Earth had stopped a while ago, and Google Maps was done. So I was kind of on my own, snaking my way through this farmland, and then I'm walking, and then I get out, and I'm like, it's in that direction. All I got is my compass showing me which direction to go. And I'm walking through this brush. All of a sudden, there's sand dunes. It's just beautiful and picturesque. And then just nothing but like coastal desert. And then you see these pyramids, these old pyramids. And to me, that's now I found out from and this is the thing, I thought they were undiscovered, but I found out from an archaeologist who reached out to me through the Instagram channel, which has been the amazing thing about this channel. That's the thing that gives me the most inspiration personally. It's the people who have messaged me, reaching out, saying, "Hey, I do this. Do you need help with that?" Just
hell yeah,
and it's really humbling, and I'm getting the chills again because it's become bigger than myself, and where I'm just kind of I'm a part of this thing and I'm spearheading it, but it's like, let's go everybody, let's figure this stuff out, and you're seeing trail magic. It's what happens when you get off the trail and you go out and find it, and it seems it's happening to you both physically down there and as part of the journey, into being a communicator, that you start to have some magic. I have some magic with me here right now. This is Steph Mark. She reached out to me and said, is there anything I can do to help? And she has been helping since January of last year. And there are not many communities that get that kind of response, where everybody's into this, man. And just like your stuff, our social media is growing phenomenally fast. And I don't say that to brag, but as much to give everybody the confidence that we aren't alone out here, man. We just don't know each other yet. Exactly. And I think that's one of the great things that, that the Cosmic Summit is doing. There's so many different facets in, the archaeological community in the world. And, you don't need to believe every part of everything, but there's but if you believe in something, there's a community for it,
Yeah. Well, let's go there with you a little bit, because I find it interesting, to just people watch channels like yours and they say, well, I just wonder what that guy really thinks about this or that. Maybe we can scratch a little bit of that itch, But are you, for instance, a fellow that believes that there was a precursor civilization in line with Graham Hancock's work?
It's possible though, because I don't know, we're still like exploring consciousness. It's possible that these people independently on all the different parts of the globe had, maybe there's a collective conscious that all this stuff comes bubbling up. That's possible. But the sheer number of similarities that are going across cultures, the myths, the legends, the architecture, the art, and there's just a lot that would kind of suggest otherwise. So I think it is definitely possible. It's definitely possible. If not, particularly probable.
That's pretty much where I am. I mean, things like the handbags, there's no fundamental human archetypal motif that we would all believe separately that you would carry a little handbag.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just not something that would bury itself in the Jungian consciousness of the human, That's because they had a certain style, they had a certain ceremony, they had whatever, some kind of beliefs or some kind of substance which compelled them. Yeah.
And I think the newest thing with the motifs, at least from what I saw recently, was the Master of Beasts, I think, or the Master of Animals, where there's a person holding, two lions or between two lions, and you're starting to see that kind of all over the world. Maybe it's two snakes if you're down in.
Yeah.
But, things like that, though, too. Maybe there is something in the, in the unconscious where it's like the master of our, of the beings around us. You know what I mean?
Or maybe people who had 100-foot long boats and were plying the Mediterranean constantly could actually just make it over the other side of the ocean just as we could.
I mean, it's
why is that so hard to believe?
Exactly. And I mean, we're not going to find that, I was thinking about this recently. A real dedicated investigation to looking for evidence of these things. I mean, it goes back, half of a century, maybe. I mean, even before. I mean, there were explorers before that, but with our modern technology and things like that, like it really hasn't been that long. It really hasn't been that we've started, having the tech to go do these things. And I feel that as that continues to develop and as the interest is out there and, just as humanity, as we grow a little bit
and mature,
there's going to be stuff there's stuff that's always going to be found. It's such a big world. And to think that we've only explored so much of it and for such little time as in the modern era, there's got to be stuff out there.
It seems like we're maturing to the point where there might be another set of answers. Usually everything gets overturned, every couple of 100 years, you think about it differently. And we seem to be very stuck. I mean, most of the understandings now are in keeping with what they were 50 and 80 years ago. And those are very, very persistent stuff. The pre-Clovis being one that finally got overturned, it actually, within my experience, I got into this in the early 90s and it was absolutely Clovis first. They try to deny it now, and say, oh, that was never a hard paradigm. Bullshit, it wasn't.
Well, and so that's, and I spoke to an archaeologist recently, and he said, the general acceptance of a theory or a thought or an idea in archaeology moves at a glacial pace. Moves at a glacial pace. And, but ultimately a paradigm like that was 100% overturned. Like as far as he was concerned, Clovis first has been dead for a long time now. And, so, but it takes the courage of, archaeologists like Tom Dillahay to put research out there and leave it open for people to analyze. That was one of the big things about it, that it was a very open thing. For Monteverde in particular, he left the research open, apparently. This is what I heard. He left it open that people could participate and analyze and look at it. And eventually that started to turn things. And so, and with new DNA research, that's going to open up new avenues of our ancestry and where we came from. I mean, and it's starting to. And I think a lot of this stuff is going to happen in our lifetimes.
Do you pay any? Have you gotten into the study of the Younger Dryas event? Are you familiar with it at all?
Yes, that's something I do subscribe to.
Yeah, and I think the important thing, the way I look at it, you read Fingerprints of the Gods. I was kind of into this stuff already at the time, and that had two wild propositions. One, that there was a golden age that had a forgotten unacknowledged Atlantis-like civilization, and 2, there was a tremendous catastrophe. And both of those were equally heretical and unproven. Well, hell, only 30 years later, we've, to my estimation, proven the catastrophe. Half of that is now proven.
Well, and that's what I'm saying here. When I was thinking about it, it hasn't been that long. I just think about what's going to happen as it seems like as the ball rolls down the hill, it rolls down faster and faster and faster, and that's kind of what it feels like is happening. Now, whether or not that changes ideas as far as people changing ideas in textbooks, I don't know if it's going to get that far yet.
Mm-hmm. Raul, do you have aspirations to take it to Egypt and things like that?
I do.
You do? Cool, man. I was hoping so.
100%. That's the goal. I have Hancock's books on my shelf, and I will say, I'll be the first to say I don't subscribe to every little thing, and I think that's healthy. But it has been an incredible jumping off. But without his work, which is so controversial to bring up now, it sparked the curiosity for how I operate. It sparks the curiosity enough. You know what? This is a great little. Let me follow that, and 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 all of a sudden, the ideas start to develop on my own. I start to see my own research. I start to do a bit more digging, and that's. I think works like that are great to initiate that type of spark. And he's a journalist. I mean, he's a journalist. He provides, especially in the earlier books, and he's a very good writer too. So,
he gave us a lot to chew on. A whole couple of generations have chewed on Graham Hancock, and the story keeps getting better and better, and bigger and bigger.
And that's the the ancient apocalypse on the Americas, and that's something. I went to Sacsayhuamán, of course, and those are the well-known sites we know about. But in that research, this was a jumping off another jumping off place for me to do independent research and find out that I'm reading Hiram Bingham's journals and Percy Fawcett's journals and finding them mention melting stones, and then I'm reading Garcia Lasso de la Vega and Cieza de Leon's accounts and figuring out what they're saying about the Incas building, and and then all of a sudden, just today I found out I didn't know that there were petroglyphs thousands of years old near Machu Picchu. I didn't know that, and so we talk about the dating of things. Sometimes there's stuff out there. It's just, you got to go looking for it, hard.
Well, there are a hell of a lot more of us interested in it than people doing anything about it. And you're an example of somebody now, it's not a research expedition, but it damn well is an educational expedition. It's bringing it to more people. And I hope the archaeologists appreciate that. Just the appreciation. For instance, you're documenting the desecration down there and getting that in front of people. That 8 miles of looting was just, and you did a great job editing it. It's a tearjerker. Hard to get people choked up about archaeology, but you can in this instance.
I'm glad you said that, because when I was previewing it myself and putting the video together, I had that moment where that drone footage, it just hits you,
Yeah. No, it's wonderful. Steph, what you thinking?
I'm just thinking, just how amazing it is, as you said, George, there's so many people who are interested in this topic and these sites, these cultures, and there's not enough exposure. It's obviously Egypt gets all of the attention, Machu Picchu gets all of the attention. What do you think is the reason why, the sites that you have been exploring, that they've just kind of been lost to, some dusty old textbook somewhere?
Quantity is a big part of it, I think.
In what sense?
The sheer number of archaeological sites that there are. This is a question I actually brought up with an archaeologist I spoke to recently, and he made some good points, like the sheer quantity of these locations. So it becomes a question of value, When something is readily available and there's tons of it, how much value does it have? When something is rare and unique, how it has a lot.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
Right.
So that was presented to me, and I was like, that kind of makes sense. I mean, the other thing is, like, especially for the indigenous peoples who are living in these areas, we live next to these. I mean, in a lot of the places, Luis was a blessing, and there were a couple places where there were these individuals who knew the history of the location. But more often than not, all I got from locals in whatever valley I was in was like, yeah, there's some ruins over there. Mm-hmm. And that's it. We don't know anything about it. We know it's there because we played in it as children, but they don't know the history of it. Every now and then you will find somebody who does. Mm-hmm. Outside of a couple sections, there isn't an attachment to these things the way, at least me, and maybe it's because I'm coming from, a westernized, American, not living down there. But these things are fascinating to me. And I'm like, how could you how can you level this place over? What was there? Yeah. And as far as a question that I brought up was, does this, kind of calling it guerrilla archaeology, does it have value to the academic world? And the response I got was a resounding yes. And it's because people aren't going out there and documenting it. And there is at most of these locations that I got 2 terabytes of footage just from my month of being down there. Now, a third of it is unusable because I'm wearing the GoPro and I'm so excited looking around. And,
right.
That's a third gone. But the majority of these sites, there is no there's probably documentation somewhere, I'm sure. If it has a sign, it's been documented, maybe a picture or two. But that was probably 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
There's no modern media of what these things look like.
Yeah.
Then you add the part of, you got some corporation coming in there wanting to build stuff. Is there ever going to be media of it? Are we ever going to know what it looked like? Yeah. So, part of the eventual goal is to, I would love to get better technology, maybe some live stuff to do some mapping, and then take of these sites, not only like present them to everybody, but also give them to the Ministry of Culture and be like, here you go. You know what I mean? Here's. Mm-hmm.
It could very well catch their eye. I'd be surprised if they weren't watching your videos.
That would be awesome. It would be awesome.
I am going down there in 2 weeks, and I'm going to the Sacred Valley of Peru. I've never been to South America. All right. This is a little controversial, a little personal revelatory, but I got invited to go on a medicine retreat. And yeah, do you know much about ayahuasca?
I've never personally tried it, but I do know a lot about it.
Do you? Yeah, that's kind of where I am too. And for 10 years, I've been interested in it and kind of put it out there. Well, there's something one day maybe I'll go do, but probably would never get around to it because it's a little bit unsettling. I'm kind of spooked right now about it. And but then I got approached. We actually went to Turkey with a Aztec ceremonialist, was one of the tour leaders. And Maria Fernanda opened up all of our sessions and whatnot with Aztec ceremonies in Turkey.
That's awesome.
Man, it was really cool, man. We're sitting at the foot of Göbekli Tepe, and you've got essentially a shaman from the other side of the planet, leading ceremonies. But somehow it all seemed right. But they came up to me towards the end of the tour, Maria and a fellow named Coleman, who were kind of doing the back stage of the tour. Like Ben led it, but these guys organized everything. But they came to me and said, we're going to start a medicine retreat in Peru. Would you like to come and lead a tour down there? And I said, well, yeah, when would this be? They said, well, we hadn't gotten started yet. It'll probably be some time. And I didn't know whether they had, followed through. And then I get a message a couple months ago, and it's Coleman. He says, yeah, would you like to come down? So I kind of feel if my excuse for being a crazy man running off and doing, a wild psychedelic drug right, is that it reached out to me. The medicine came to me, man, right? It wanted me to come down there and do it. It had two approaches to me, and I said, okay, I'm going to take it off the bucket list. Let's go get this over with. So I'll give you a report.
I relate to that. That's and I talk to friends of mine. They will quote me when I've said, it's something I'm open to doing, but I'm not going to go out there looking for it, looking to me.
Yeah.
And if it comes to me, then I'll take that as a sign that, this is something to experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if people are interested, there's still spots open. That's the seven retreats is the name of the beautiful, beautiful, Sacred Valley Lodge that they have secured for this week, but it's coming up rather soon. It's November 9th through the 16th. And if people want to reach out to us, team at Cosmic Summit stuff, or hell, George at Cosmic Summit, just email.
Yeah.
Okay. And we can get you in that trip, but it's coming up in a couple of weeks. Love to see anybody. And, I also feel like I'll do a lot more if I do it and find it nearly as valuable as many other people have, then I think I'll have the confidence to recommend them to others because they're really sweet people. And I think very, very responsible in the practice of these ceremonies. It is the real deal, and everybody wants authenticity, and they are flat out authentic. And they're also well-versed in a lot of the subjects we like. So just giving a little pitch here to 7 retreats, and you can go find their website too and look it over, folks. And if you're interested, get in touch with me or email them directly and come on down there with us this time or another time. Maybe we'll get you over there, Raul.
Maybe at some point.
Right? Maybe this is it reaching out to you, brother.
This is the sign.
Right? You know what I'm afraid of? Probably what other people's get. It's not the fact of doing a heavy drug like that. I think I'll probably handle it. But they say that maybe I can't. Maybe the point is not to handle it, right? But they say, you kind of confront your inner demons, and I just don't know whether I want to know them. I don't want to meet them, man. What if they're just horrible inner demons? What if I'm just a demon? You know what I mean? Just like I look at it and go, oh my God, I come out of the trip and I'm like, oh, I'm just beyond repair, man.
Don't bring anything back with you. Leave the demons where they live.
It's like, oh, that's a bunch of bullshit. I'm not that bad. I'm not that evil in my core.
With the right intention, I think. It's there's a reason this has been done for millennia.
Yeah,
it's something to it, and I think it'll.
Dude, and there's a reason why that vine came together with that leafy plant. Yeah. Out of all the damn species of vegetation in the Amazon jungle, that someone could end up taking 2 random plants and putting them through a rather complex process that isn't followed exactly right, it ain't going to work. Right? How does that emerge? I mean, it's got to come from somewhere else.
It's shocking to think it happens by happenstance.
Yeah,
you just all the species out there, like it's
yeah.
But then there's however they got to the point where it was developed or found out. After that, I mean, it's in the artwork. It's it's in it's in the myths. It's in the traditions. It's you can see the moche drawings of the shamans, and so it's a very ancient practice.
Yeah, man. God, well, with a little trepidation, I look forward to joining that long, long line of people who've blasted off to space and come back to tell the story, man. Oh,
just leave the demons where they are, though.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. But I tell you, they do, like I said, it's a real ritual. Like they have the first, I don't know if it's technically the very first night, but the first thing is some kind of tobacco psychedelic, right? And maybe that's the one called rape, I guess. I don't know. It's something I had never heard of. Again, just trusting in my hosts. And then you do 3 ayahuasca experiences over 3 days. Then you're off a day, and then the final day you do basically a kind of mescaline, but not peyote based. It's off of another cactus.
San Pedro.
Yeah, it is San Pedro. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I mean that's the native to Peru. That's a lot of psychedelics in a lot of days.
I was gonna say,
yeah. Might have to edit this out, man. I mean, I've got friends and family that are going to worry for me.
Oh boy.
I assume when Aaron Rodgers goes down there, when Graham does, it's kind of a similar treatment. I hope this isn't like the XL version.
I don't have enough experience to tell you which way or the other.
If you know that's way too much, just don't tell me, okay?
I couldn't speak to it, so you're good.
Oh my gosh, we'll have to follow up on this, Raul.
Definitely. I plan to take you up on the Cosmic Summit Greensboro offer.
Hey, thank you, man. Thank you, and we'll definitely have you on a panel, okay? And if you could, you've probably looked at other people in your genre. If you give me some recommendations, don't have to be right now, of course. Okay. But people you think would be interesting on a panel that are doing the same thing you are. Okay. Which is damn walking the walk, brother. That's what you're doing.
Literally.
It was
going up a hill, just randomly.
Yeah. And that was a hell of a walk up that hill. Lost your pair of shoes. How many shoes did you walk through?
So here's the story about that. About that. So that was actually 2 days. The first day I was going on my way north. The first day I climbed up that mountain. That was the climb.
Miserable climb. And what was your total elevation there?
It was only 1,400 feet. It wasn't that.
Really? Okay, I thought you said 1,400 feet, but I said
that's what Google. All I know is that's what it looks like on Google Earth, and that could be wrong. I mean, I didn't have any instruments to measure that.
But is that from sea level?
You know what? I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. See, that's plus a few thousand. I mean, are you up at the same level that like the Sacred Valley is?
No.
Okay, that's higher.
This is much lower. It's not as close to the coast, midway between the coast and the Andes. So I mean, it's starting the ascent. But basically, I think I have it on my cell phone. I'm driving into this valley, and I know there's this city and this fortress on the top of these mountains, and they're just it is just sheer straight cliffs all the way up, and I'm like, how in the hell am I going to make it up there? And I'm driving. I asked a kid at a little soda stand and said, I think you can go through the cemetery, and I pack up my things. I make the hike, and it's unbearable. I get up there, and I'm exhausted, and I'm tired, and I look out, and I'm scared. I'm scared to walk on that ridge. The city's right there. I know it's right there, and this was one of the responsible moments. I was like, and it really upset me, and it bugged me. But I did the responsible thing. But it bugged me so much, though. I went back up. I went north, and then on my way back, I was like, you know what? I'm going to find a way to get there. And so I found a route. It was still a lot of climbing, but it wasn't as dangerous. But it was just eating me up. I was like, I was right there. It was, within a stone's throw over this peak. I went back to find it.
I tell you, one technology has helped you out is drones, man.
Yeah. I wish I had. This is my first time ever using a drone, and I think you can see that in the.
No, definitely not.
Well, thank you. But I was really scared using it at first because I had never really flown a drone. And so I learned about midway through the expedition, use the drone as recon. And so that's what it became eventually. Which
as your own personal Google Earth,
exactly. And
at times you can't tell whether it's your drone or whether you're on Google Earth. And I've got a pretty good eye for that stuff.
I've noticed
for my business. Yeah, it's like hold on now.
It's the desert areas that'll really do that to you.
Well, listen, man, we've started something new with this podcast, and that's the Cosmic Summit Explorers Club, buddy.
I like it.
And you are the inaugural member, and you're a great one to do it. I'm so glad Steph turned me on to you. She's got a good eye. Let's go out and find another 4 or 5 of folks like yourself, and I think that'll make an interesting team for a panel, and hopefully they'll keep up with us as they're traipsing around the Earth,
For sure.
Sorry, I was going to say, it just goes to show you, I got referred to you. I was just scrolling through Instagram, and then I was like, hang on a minute, that looks interesting. And I saw one of your videos, and I thought, okay, cool. And then you popped up like a couple of days later, and then a couple of days, another one. And it just goes to show you that the algorithm, although I hate it, occasionally does work. And I just find it amazing that from some random scroll, April, May of this year, and now we're sitting here having a conversation. It's amazing.
Isn't that fun? I tell you, we got a good little gig here, Steph. We can just call up interesting people like Raul and get to know them, and then go meet them in person too.
Yeah.
There are not many podcasts where you all get a chance to get together.
No, I'm really looking forward to that. And, I think it was in 2023, there were certain people you had at the summit that I've always enjoyed listening to. So I went out looking for it, and I was like, this is a great thing you bringing on.
Oh, awesome, man. So we were on your radar back then?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Cool. That's always good to hear.
And then this happened, and I was like, oh, no way. That's awesome.
Well, I tell you, we have never had more people on our radar. We had 9 million views on YouTube this month, folks.
Wow.
Just sharing this. Yeah. And I tell you, it's turning into Cosmic Nation. Okay. And I use that term kind of facetiously and have labeled some files like that show where everybody's from, because it ain't one nation, man. It is all around the world. I'll go put it on, people can find it on my Twitter, but I've put that file up there a couple times. I took all the views and said, show them to me by city on Earth. So they show you the top 500 cities. And I mean, as many people watch the Cosmic Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, as Cary, North Carolina. You know, I mean, it was universal. And it's not a credit to our content. It's a credit. Well, I guess it is some extent.
Absolutely,
it's
is,
a credit
George.
to the
Absolutely
subject
is.
matter.
Yeah.
Well, it is. But you know, you could have well-produced content and fun people and it could be a Southern gardening conference and just not be relevant to people elsewhere, bass fishing or something. You know what I mean? But our subject, God bless it, our constellation of subjects are thin. In other words, in your immediate social circle, you're unlikely to have a friend that you can speak to as a peer on these subjects. But worldwide, it is wide, thin and wide.
I think a good word there. That, the constellation of subjects.
Yeah,
and I think that's I could see that reach and that effect because of that constellation of subjects. Because you have specialists talking about. I mean, from this end of the spectrum to that end of the spectrum, there's going to be something for somebody, and it can be an outlet and a channel and a place for them to come to relate.
Amen, brother. So everybody, like, share, and follow at Cosmic Summit on all the major platforms. Take a look at our tickets and consider purchasing one for $50 off using Pillars50, and definitely go check out Pillars of the Past podcast. Thank you, Raul. We look forward to seeing you in June, buddy.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it too. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.